Nigeria on the march again.
On the march again.
Looking for Mr. President.
On the march again.
Adebayo is our man. He's our man.
Now he go make our country better.
He's our man.
For progress and a better tomorrow.
He's our man.
Make you vote for Rambo, my brother.
He's our man.
Make you vote for Rambo, my sister.
He's our man.
Everybody make una vote for Rambo.
He's our man.
Be our only hope.
He's our man.
I say na him be hope for tomorrow.
He's our man. Adebayo. Nigeria on the march again.
On the march again.
SDP the people's choice.
On the march again.
Adebayo is our man. He's our man. SDP.
If elected, what is going to be, how are you going to engage in terms of recruiting your cabinet members? What will be your cardinal, focus? That's one. Number two, I also like you to talk to the effect around the rule of law, because again, no country will succeed if we don't, of course, obey the rules and of course the issues around justice, fairness, and all of that. I also like you to speak on that. And finally, about the cost of governance. And this is something that a lot of the candidates, I haven't heard so much about them. I don't want to talk about insecurity and all of that, but looking at the cost of governance, which is humongous as we have it at the moment, I'd like you to, in practical ways, if elected, how are you going to provide leadership in that light in terms of cutting the cost of governance if elected as the president of Nigeria? Thank you.
As I was approaching this hall, I passed through the research center of NIPSS, and I said, if I'm allowed to take over this building, I can solve all Nigeria's problems from there. And like I said, even in my own family alone, 3 MNIs sent me a text message yesterday just because I said I was coming to Kuru. But you will see that our neighboring countries, many of them will be even pleading to have an opportunity to send just 1 or 2 to come and attend courses here. So there's no shortage of manpower. What is wrong with Nigeria is what Ashebe recognized in 1982. The problem with Nigeria is leadership. If I would not have more than 55 ministers. The people I know who are qualified to be ministers, who will do fantastically well within my party, are over 500. People who, if I wasn't running for president, and they are running for president, I would say this one can be president. That's just talking about my party. And there's nothing that limits us to the party. I give an example of many Nigerians. I don't have much time here, but I meet Nigerians everywhere. Many universities all over the world, many banks, many institutions. So there is no shortage of manpower. The problem is, why is the leader recruiting his cabinet? What is his purpose? If you are recruiting people to come and help you cover up, then you will not recruit independent-minded people. If you are recruiting people to help you recover your campaign fund, you will tell you the kind of person you are recruiting. So that is the problem. It's not, I have enough people. In fact, in making lists of cabinet members, there are about 6,000 appointments that make up the presidency, including Director General of NIPSS, is part of the presidency. In these 6,000 appointments, you will have minimum of 60,000 people from who you can select. That if this one has maybe a medical problem, this one has another personal problem, you can always replace. So there's no issue of leadership. Plus, you have to elect the president, because if the president is not capable of being improved upon, first, the president himself has to have a general knowledge and appreciation of the situation of the country, has to have a vision that can be sold, and has to have the character to take tough decisions in the interest of the country. So I think the problem is not issue of manpower. And everybody, if you randomly take this microphone and give to anybody who has come from SDP, they will talk exactly the way I'm talking. So it's not personal to me, it's something that is institutional. With respect to the rule of law, I was addressing the MPA yesterday. Day before yesterday, and I said, why are you calling me to come and talk about rule of law? The essence of rule of law is that no president should be able to promise it, and no president should be able to withdraw it. The rule of law is meant to be independent of the government of the day. So in a country where a president says, I will give you rule of law, you are already violating rule of law. The only thing I can promise as president is that I will be under the law. I will not be above the law. And that nobody who is serving under my warrant will be above the law. And that a constable can write a letter to me and say he's coming to my chamber, the Federal Executive Council, because he wants to arrest Minister of Works. I will hand him over by myself. So in a country that has rule of law, the Prime Minister of Britain is afraid of a constable by the roadside. And that is what we need to have. And the reason why we haven't had that is because, and I said it during the debate, people say I should not be saying it again, but since the rule of NIPSS allows me to say it here, the reason why you don't have rule of law is that you have criminals in government. So if a policeman is to do his job, half of those who are in government will be in jail first. And that is the problem why rule of law is undermined, but the quality of the policeman is undermined, the quality of training is undermined, the ability to live well and make important decisions is undermined. So that's basically, the cost of governance is not the problem of Nigeria, it's the cost of corruption. Many of our institutions are underfunded, and the revenue is also under-collected. So I will talk more about it in the next question.
Thank you very much for keeping it. If you should be the president of this country, security is much tied to a lot of things like the economy, agriculture, and a lot of things. How will you, what is your development plan on security, looking at what is on ground, the issue of terrorism, kidnapping, and even the issue of policemen within our states? By statistics in 2018, we all know that one policeman mans about 680 people in this country. What is your development plan? Because we know the environment must be secure for us to do our businesses, our farmers to go to the farm, and also our miners. What is your development plan? Then in the area of education, we all know that education, a nation who does not invest in its people is heading for the rock. So lately we have had the issue of ASU, which has been a niggling problem within our country. What is your plan on over 10 million of Nigerians who have lost school or who are out of school? What is your development plan on issues of ASU if you are elected? And then the issue of justice sector. Our prisons have been congested for a while. What is your development plan? Women and youth have formed a high population in the area of election. We don't want to be on the polling units forever. What is your plan in bringing them into governance? What are your plans in trying to implement policies like the Gender Equal Opportunity Bill that was thrown out, I think, some time ago by the legislative arm of government? What are your plans? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam. First, the fact that we are asking a question about securing the geospatial space called Nigeria in an election year, it's a sad commentary. The essence of government is security. Government does not share its territory with anyone. And what has to be responsible for that, in order to cut it short, is that we have incumbents in position, but they have not formed a proper government. And there are three things we did. First, we cancelled the Native Authority Police for historical reasons. It has to do with mismanagement during politics. We have states that they have ability to pass laws, but they cannot enforce their laws. So we concentrated the management of law enforcement at the federal level. And at that federal level, we are absent-minded. So what I will do basically is to arrange a situation in which, as the person directing the police, I make a lot of devolution, so that at the local government level, even without amending constitution, at the local government level, at the DPO, they are post more senior officers there, and they can take responsibility for what is going on there. At the state level, I make sure that the commissioner of police can do almost everything the IG of police can do, so that they can be effective at that level, or they have a better relationship with the police, with the governor. Because luckily for me, as president and chairman of police council, the governors are also members of the police council. I will take care of the police from there. And I will ensure that the policemen actually are of high quality. And you can do that because you will know that the police are of high quality when your son, who has first class in political science, says, I'm joining the police. He's not saying he's going abroad. And to do that, you have to make the welfare of the police and the quality of respect that they get to be top-notch. And the statistic that we only have one policeman to police 680 people is not the only problem we have. Because if you don't want to have 3 policemen asking 680 people to give them bribe on the way. So it's not just only improving in the number of policemen, you want to improve also in the quality of the policemen that you put in place. And to see that the security architecture is such that police takes as priority the defense of the people, taking care of the people, not protecting the government. Now, with respect to education, education is a constitutional right, and I've mentioned it in Chapter 2 of our Constitution. What we will do with education is to make sure we do 3 things. 1, we put adequate funding in it. And that's why I said the cost of governance is not the problem in Nigeria. It's the cost of corruption, because almost every institution, including NIPSS, is underfunded. So why do you say the cost of governance then? So many areas of social intervention, the government is not taking care of them. If there are people who are hungry in Jos, it doesn't concern the governor, it will just walk past. Whereas if it's another place, it is the responsibility of the local government and the state government to see that people are well fed. So we are not investing enough. And that's because only about 7% of our revenue is recognized in our books. The rest is appropriated to people who sponsor politicians. Others just wasted away like that. So we would invest in education. With respect to ASU, it's very easy to resolve that issue. First, we take politicians away from the governing council of the universities, make them independent. Second, we make sure that the trust fund is managed outside the government. The trust fund should not be in the Ministry of Education. 3, we put endowment fund for all the universities, and we ensure that everybody contributes to that. Now, the justice sector, the simple thing about justice is a professional sector. The third arm of government is the bench and the bar. Depends on the lawyers. What I can do is to make sure that we have an independent judiciary that is well-funded and given its own money, and as the law enforcing arm of government to see that we enforce the law, the justice reform will come. With respect to women and youth, the Social Democratic Party has youth occupying most of our position. I'm also considered to be a youth in Nigeria, and I'm the one running for president. My VP is also a youth. And so we are already in that line. We will be a pace setter, not just youth, most of our chairmen are youth. Majority of the NWC of our party is youth. Our chairman is a youth. So we are well on our way with respect to that, and women are well respected in our party, and they play a major role. Thank you.
So very quickly, climate change, what's your plan? It's an existential threat for Nigeria. What's your plan for addressing climate change? We cannot drive development without energy. Energy is on your platform, sir, as one of your 4 main key areas of attention. But the world is moving towards energy transition. Nigeria itself is being pushed in that direction. How do we, sir, address energy transition in Nigeria? And lastly, what is your plan for mobilizing the immense wealth of experience and capacity that resides outside this country in the Nigerian diaspora? Thank you, sir.
There are 3 ways I think about climate, what I call climate policy or climate politics. is the issue of equity. We have to understand climate equity because global warming, depleting ozone layer, CO2, they are all the anthropomorphic part of it, because there are arguments and I don't want to go into that. The anthropomorphic part of it, the human causation part of it, is the work of the Industrial Revolution. The industrialized world of the North account for most of the emissions. But all of us now have to contribute to the remission. So the first thing is to make sure that climate discussions and arrangements recognize the fact that the pollutants have to compensate those of us who are having to manage the situation with them. Because in many of the options we are taking today, countries have to voluntarily forgo some of their developmental opportunities in order to save the planet. And those who have taken advantage of coal, of other things in the past, cannot just say, because you broke the China, we have to both pay for it at the same price. I don't agree. Second is to look at climate opportunities, because it's also the climate economy allows you to turn around, and in developing our economy, we should not assume that we're in the 19th century anymore. So we should take advantage of green technology, science, engineering, maths, and all of the other technological advancement allow us now to direct our economy. For example, every building, every institution that I own, the first thing you will see before you even see furniture are solar panels, because I like to generate efficient energy, clean energy. So I'm highly interested in that. And we are going to lose some jobs in the area of not being able to exploit our coal and other heavy pollutants, but our people are well primed to be trained in the new area. So I believe that we can redirect our economy and ensure that we do all we can to see that we are in the avant-garde of green technology and green economy. So that's what area I will be. The third area that I want to emphasize on that is that we have transition. Luckily, we are more of a gas country than a crude oil country. So gas is the bridge between the world we dream of and the world we are in now. And everything is well primed for us. Our gas reserve makes, if we just exploit our gas reserve, up to 10%. By the time we get to 10% of our gas reserve, we will be ahead of the USA in GDP size. So we are well equipped for that. So that is the way I'm looking at it, that we cannot say we're not involved in it, we are involved in it, but climate equity is very important. Climate economy, to see it as an opportunity, is very important. With respect to energy transition, we ourselves should do the transition ahead of those who are our partners. And another thing I want to say about crude oil and all of that, don't worry about it, is the use of crude is not only for fueling. You can use it for plastics. I'm involved in the pharmaceutical industry, and I know we still use a lot of it for that. With respect to the diaspora, I am myself, until recently, a member of the diaspora, and we always say we need the talents abroad to be used. The only thing I will say is that it is difficult for a country to use the talent abroad when it doesn't use the talent at home. So the general attitude generally is that whether you are diaspora or you are here, as long as you are a Nigerian and you are available to be used in Nigeria to contribute, we'll create an environment in which, one, it is not risky for your career to join the public service. Two, you can make a decent living. You don't have to lose too much to be able to work in this public service. So we need to create a purchasing power parity for public institutions. You cannot have friends who work overseas, who would like to work in Nigeria. I always mention Frank Bello. He can take 10% salary cut, 20% salary cut, 50% salary cut, but he will not take 99.999% salary cut, because that's the implication of what. So they will be coming to work almost like charity people, charitable organizations. But we need to do two things to our economy. One, we need to have purchasing power parity, and we need to create stability to our currency so that people can make honest living. Because one of the reasons why I'm joining government at the age of 51 why I didn't join government at the age of 21 when I had the opportunity was that I'm allergic to bribe and I'm allergic to poverty. So as president now, I should make it possible for you to survive on your income. Right now, even if you go to the State House, the president cannot be sure that his driver, his ADC, his secretary are living on their salaries. And that's what we need to correct. Then all the talent will come to Nigeria.
Coming from the education sector, I want to understand, because part of your manifesto said that, that's a phrase in your party manifesto states that one of the reasons why the education sector is in crisis is because of underfunding, lack of priorities, and its unwillingness to be internationally competitive. So I wish that you shed some more light on that aspect, because I know that a lot of us do a lot of work in research, and most of these research findings are left hanging on the shelves. Nothing is really done about them. Then to your field as a lawyer, I want to understand your plan for the Constitution. I know that the Constitution places exploration activities in the hands of the federal government and the control, etc. But then the irony there is that like Nigeria has been an oil-based economy for decades, and then up till now, we know that some of these oil wells are in the hands of individuals. How do you want to fix this contradiction? Then thirdly, Nigeria is blessed with a lot of resources across all the geopolitical zones. So I want to understand how you plan to harness the resources in your diversification plan for the economy. And then we know that last year, within 4 months, Nigeria's number of multidimensionally poor people grew from 89.4% to 89.4 million people to 133 million people. So the poverty levels are rising. We know that Nigeria has one of the biggest slums in the world. There are so many people out on the streets. It has the highest number of out-of-school children. How do you intend to fix this? And then what happens to the educational sector again back there, because the universities are becoming overwhelmed. Everybody is rooting to go to the university because other vocational institutions have failed. So how do you intend to fix this? And then health tourism, okay, and I think that is basically that for now. Thank you.
Education, our attitude is this, and that part of our manifesto is not the part where we are promising anything. It's the part where we're recognizing the reality on ground. My parents, my uncles, when they went to university, they had people from all over the world coming to school with them. Even when I was at IFE studying law, I had people from Botswana, Zimbabwe, and whatever. Now, I doubt if any university has 1% foreign student. The competitiveness of your university is not, you cannot deny it. You cannot raise your voice and lose your temper, because you are ranked globally. First, you must have curriculum discipline. You must be able to exhaust your curriculum, which means that you must have control over your calendar. You must also have discipline in terms of the structure of your teaching protocols. So if you produce a medical doctor, all over the world, people must see them as medical doctors. If you produce lawyers, I employ lawyers. With due respect, my set wasn't Kayode short set. But when I receive lawyers, I receive them like laymen. And then they start training in the law in my law office. And many people who employ people say so. So that's what we recognize there. And the challenge of that is that there's no talisman. What you need to do is to start afresh, mentally. Invest in the university, reconstitute the university, enlarge the capacity to admit more people, also to teach those who are there properly, including the welfare of the students. The students, I don't see under an SDP government where it should be optional for an undergraduate whether he wants to stay on campus or not. It should not be because we didn't invest in it. Secondly, there must be 99% attendance before you can graduate. That way, we have to give you accommodation on campus. And there should be a maximum of 2 or 3 in a room Ideally, it should be 2. So this massive investment needs to be made. If you don't make them, you will not change the situation. And the lecturers have to be comfortable that their income is capable of making them to be in upper middle class, which is where they belong. Secondly, that they have security of tenure, and that they have peer-to-peer. They're able to do research at the same rate as their colleague overseas, and when they go out, they don't look obsolete. When I was living in Ife, the newest journal was 1984. So, for God's sake, that is what we are trying to change, and we must be decisive about it. Whereas for the Constitution, my plan for the Constitution is to obey it. I don't have any other plan. If the National Assembly wants to amend it, do whatever, I will support them. But my duty is to obey. This Constitution we have suffers disobedience. That's where the problem lies. With respect to the exploration, yes, it is in the exclusive list. What we can do is to take most things that are in the exclusive list, take them to the concurrent list. Because when these items are in the concurrent list, the federal government still has what we call cover the field. For example, education is concurrent, but federal law will supersede a state law. So it was a big mistake to put all of them in the exclusive list. They should be in concurrent. And then the notion that Nigeria is an oil-based economy, it is not. Nigeria is a crude oil selling country. We are not an oil-based economy. We don't touch oil up to 1%. We don't refine, we don't do anything. So we're not an oil-based economy. We're just a country adjacent to oil fields in the deep sea. And we sign contract licensing people to come and exploit them. So if Nigeria was an oil-based country, it would be like Texas, where I practiced for many years. It would be like California, and it would be like Qatar. So that is where we are going to go to. With respect to diversification is not the problem. We've been talking about it. It is to create an environment in which somebody can invest and get a legitimate return, which means you need to build infrastructure. Electricity, that's why we keep emphasizing electricity, railroad, and all of that. I have investment in Nigeria, and the logistic of managing them is a problem. So those are the areas we need to invest in it. And with the poverty, the people who are poor in Nigeria are not poor because God caused them. They are poor because they are victims of robbery. The entire government has been set up to rob them. And if you keep robbing people for 60 years, why are you now surprised that they are poor? So we should stop robbing the people. We should make sure that we use their money for their welfare, as stated in the Constitution. Thank you.
I went through the party manifesto, and I must confess it's a good one. It's a heartwarming. Yeah. What the concern we are having is that we've been hearing this good news for so long. So many people have came, promised heaven and hell, but at the end, the implementation is the issue. So most of my questions here will hinge on how we're going to achieve what we have said we're going to achieve. For instance, you're talking about saying farewell to poverty through free education, adequate nutrition, medical care. You even went ahead to say you're going to provide 1,000 units of housing in each state every year within the first 4 years. My question is, how are we going to finance this? Where will the funding come from? We all know that the federal government is having a very poor fiscal space currently. The approved 2023 budget, 28.82 trillion. We have only a revenue of 11.05 trillion, leading to a debt of over 10 trillion. And we all know the effect of debt and debt servicing that the country is already facing. How are we going to finance all these investments in education, in housing, in nutrition, without stifling the private sector? That's my number one question. Number two is a follow-up from that number one. You're talking about this, that your government will provide 30 million jobs within the first 18 months in office. And I was wondering, how will this come? We know that the government parasite has already overemployed. So many idle workers are there. That is why they are having a very mega salary. which is affecting their social welfare. Now, we also know about the poor business environment in the country. So many factories are leaving the country. So within 18 months, how are you going to tackle this to create this employment without increasing the number of government employees? Because that actually is not an option. Then number 3, it would be unfair for us to finish this without discussing the critical issue on board, which is the issue of subsidy. So how are we going to tackle this subsidy issue, knowing the social unrest that is likely to create? Thank you.
Thank you. If I can deliver all these ideas in 5 minutes, I should be able to create jobs in 18 months. Number 1, revenue. The government has lost its treasury. There is no treasury officer. Go around, the government has lost its treasury. The government is not collecting its revenue. I've done the calculation and I've said it many times, and those who are in government can comment. Government is collecting about 7% of what it's supposed to collect. The rest, they farmed out in different places. How will I be surprised that you are hoping to collect 11.something trillion when you have given waivers over 17 trillion away? So you have sacred cows that you don't want to collect revenue from. So that is the problem. If you go to the maritime economy, right from pilotage into Nigeria, all these things have been farmed out to people who sponsor politicians. So somebody can sit down in his house, he has no navy, he has nothing, but he's collecting a huge amount of money, and the navy is being asked to follow him. So all of those areas, the ports between Badagry and Rio de Rey, we are supposed to have minimum of 18 ports built without asking us for money. I myself, forget I was being president, I can bring, I believe, 4 corporations to build entreports. But these things have been concession to people. And they are trying to create monopoly for certain people. So that's the reason why the government is short of revenue. A budget of 21 trillion at today's value for 210 million people is an official signature of poverty. Lagos alone should be able to give you 21 trillion, just Lagos alone. So the problem is that the government, the way they cannot capture the territory of Nigeria and secure it, the same way they cannot capture the revenue. Even Ministry of Interior alone should be able to fund this budget. So I've advised government on many occasions. So I realized that every revenue point you recognize, somebody goes to block it. So that is why there's more money in politics than there is in government. So we will increase the revenue sharply, and you will see that. On the issue of job creation is not rocket science. You create works. The problem with the budget, this is the only country that says building railway. There are no railway workers, no railway families. Senator Obai is a railway boy. He wouldn't have gone to school except his father worked for the Nigerian Railway. And he trained him, became a first class in political science. So where are the railway families? So the problem in the government is that they're not creating works. Look at the Civil War. I know many members of my family who became important people because they joined the army during the Civil War. We're having a big war going on here. They are buying photographers' drone and claiming they are buying Raptor drone and throwing away money. So they are not even recruiting enough boots on the ground. Many of the battalions don't have the strength at all. So we are not recruiting. So when you start, look at all the potholes on our roads. If you are planting ginger in Southern Kaduna alone, you will employ 2 million people, and you will still not be able to exhaust that. I'm a farmer. I know the crude oil is being sold for $100, whatever it is now. I have never sold my palm oil less than $600 per barrel. And if I keep farming every day of my life, I will not meet 1% of the world demand for palm oil. So this is where you create the employment. It's not about getting people into government. I know that people who are in government are always afraid. When we say we are creating employment, they think, so 25,000 permanent secretary, 10,000 more directors, they come and take my job. No. What we are saying is that when you create a new stream in the economy, you are going to, for example, if the refinery have been working, you will, all those families around Kaduna, around Warri, around Eleme, they are families that arose from working in refineries. So these are the institutions you need to wake up. And when we calculated this, about 32 million jobs. But in order not to be rough, we said 30 because 30 is easier to remember. So these jobs will come. And these are jobs of investment, not just getting people into the government. On the issue of subsidy, the subsidy is a boogeyman because it's like a trick question. If you say, I'm going to remove subsidy, then Labour Congress and it will bring pitchforks to deal with you. What is killing what they call subsidy is fraud. There is nobody consuming 70 million liters a day anywhere. And luckily you are originally from Central Bank. Central Bank itself discovered that a lot of those claims are bogus. A ship that has never entered West Africa in the last 7 years, you will find them making claim that it landed at Atlas Cove. So if we remove the corruption, the cost will come down. Secondly, if we take our refineries from being a cost center, which it is now, and I can do an O&M contract, it becomes a profit center. And if I do modular refinery with some crackers, nobody will worry. And lastly, if you come to my compound now, you will see solar panel motorcycle, solar panel powered buses, solar powered everything. If you have gas powered and solar powered buses all over cities in Nigeria, and every civil servant only needs their ID card to tap and enter the bus, nobody will worry about the price of petrol. After all, diesel that we are using to carry our food, carry everything, is deregulated, and nobody has died. Kerosene, which the poor people use to ignite firewood, is deregulated, nobody has died. The most important thing is that we must stop that fraud, which is where they are financing all these billboards you see for politics. It's coming from subsidy money.
What provisions have you for the people with disability?
The first thing we need is to remove the stigma. Everybody is with disability. That's why the professor here could not read the name of the person on the screen. But with the assistance of glasses, she was able to read 2 out of 3. But without glasses, then she would have serious disability. So people with disability should understand that it is the job of the society to give you ability within that disability. And I had a classmate who was extremely brilliant. He was fantastically brilliant. But when we got to law school, he had to do a rewrite of his exam. But what made the matter very painful to him was that another friend of ours, Linus, who was born blind, actually passed the bar. So the person who was born blind passed the law school, and my friend, who's a very brilliant student, had to write one exam. So it's possible for society to invest in anyone, whatever their disability is, to ensure that so if there's no stigma, if there's investment, our government, what we want to do is that the life of people without disability is tough in Nigeria because the life of people with ability is also tough. So when you make life easier for everybody, and then you don't pay special emphasis. For example, if we don't pay teachers, where are you going to have people? You now say, okay, let's have special teacher for people who are blind or who have other difficulty learning. So if you have full faculty and you are not able to get a job, how do we deal with people who have mental health challenges? So those are the investments we need to make. And that is why I say, if you stick to Chapter 2 of the Constitution, it says that nobody should be discriminated against in Nigeria by virtue of circumstances of their birth or the condition or disability. So this is what we're going to do. I'm sorry, these short minutes are not enough to go into the how and how, but be sure that we understand that this is what we need to do. And what has happened to us with respect to Paralympics has shown to us that while our people fail the Olympics, while they fail World Cup, our brothers and sisters who are in the Paralympics, they're always winning. So maybe God wants us to pay attention to that.
What is happening currently with the cashless policy and the change of currency? It's making so many go crazy. What is your plan in terms of technology The network have not worked, transfers have been difficult, and there's no cash. We say we're on 4G, we are going to 5G, but the equipment, from what I heard last year, we are still using 3G.
Thank you very much.
We are cashless because the policy is senseless. We have changed money in Nigeria. The central bank is not a new institution. In 73, under Awolowo, Gowon, Awolowo and Clement Ison, we changed from the pound to the naira. Musicians were singing about it. Everybody knew about it. We are changing the money. It took time. Secondly, we changed in 1984. That one, soldiers were flogging everybody. So the same people who flog us now are the one flogging us again. So that one was poorly managed. People were queuing up, committing suicide. But under Obasanjo and Soludo, we changed from paper to polymer. People did not even notice. And interestingly, for many years, I've been a lawyer to currency printers. For many, if you study cases on currency printing all over the world, you will see my name in many cases. So you will see that it's very easy. In England now, they want to change from the queen head to the king head. They have 2 years to make the change. It's an error, and I hope it won't be there by the time we come. But if it's still there, we'll deal with it decisively. You use your money for as long as you want until we're able to recover it from you, not by force. And then on the issue of 3G, usually I get no Gs. I don't know how you manage to get 1 G. Most of the time I get no Gs at all. It's because the NCC is not reinvesting the money. Each time you make a call, some money goes for back infrastructure. That money is just being shared, it's not being used. If you go to NIPSS, you see a lot of people who are in politics, they go to NIPSS to collect money there. This money that's supposed to be used to reinvest, we will make sure we support the technology with it.
How do you intend to tackle the agitations going on within the country? Different people trying to break up from the country. Thank you.
Nigerians, nobody is breaking away. I can guarantee you that. But people have many ways by which they express disgust against injustice. And that is why the president is a head of state. I, as a head of state, everybody will have a sense of belonging. And justice is what we need to do in this country. There's a lot of injustice. Ethnic injustice, religious, interreligious injustice, gender injustice, even generational injustice. Those who went to university very well, like DG, who didn't pay money, their professors now asking for other people to come and pay. That's generational injustice. So all these injustices are the things we need to address. If we address them, no Nigerian wants to go anywhere. I can guarantee you that.
How do you want to go about achieving a stable exchange rate for businessmen and others so that they can plan their businesses ahead and be sure that there will be no disruption? Thank you very much.
Exchange rate, there's no magic. As long as you are not looking for 1 naira to $1, we are looking at parity. Every effort was towards parity. No, look at stability. And the way to get stability is one, get rid of the dual exchange rate. Because that dual exchange rate is dual criminality. Because you are incentivizing people who have connection to go and collect at official rate and go and sell to somebody else. So once you get out of the dual exchange rate, once you also take the government hand away from managing the forest, the CBN, forest will come in, you'll be stable. The same thing in Tanzania, Kenya, everywhere, whose economies are weaker than that of Lagos. But they have stability, we can achieve that without problems.
Mr. President, how do you develop devolution of power to ensure the implementation of the Chapter 2 within the states and local governments? Thank you, sir.
Devolution is by incentivizing, because until the Constitution is amended, I don't have control over governors, but I have influence over them. So through counterpart funding and using statutory transfers, I can ensure that they invest in the Chapter 2 of the Constitution in the social sector. However, living by example is the scarcest commodity in Nigeria. Everybody preaches to the other. So the first thing I need to do is to make sure that as president, I invest in the social sector, and once they see it, others will follow along.
My question is to how to put
youth, the area of youth unemployment in Nigeria, and what differently would this our presidential candidate do to harness the demographic dividend of this vibrant youth to put into positive use? Thank you.
The first gift a country can give to the youth is to give them a stable family that can feed them well. So we need, which means that as much as possible, we create employment for the parents, because most people want to take care of their youth at home first. Second is to engage the youth from school. That's why we have the universal primary education policy. So once the youth are kept in school, or in some vocational school as well, by the time they get into young adult, they're already well equipped for society. Then the third is to get them gainfully engaged. Our plan is basically that, one, we not only deal with the university, we expand all avenues. In fact, there's an association called NATA, automobile mechanic and all of that. We're engaging with them, we're engaging with all skill sector to see that we standardize their training, so that if you want to be a vulcanizer or a plumber, there are people in England who never went past high school, but they are fantastic plumbers. So things like that, we train across the board. I'll keep them engaged. There's no other magic than that. But it requires spending government money on the people, which is what politicians are not very happy to do.
When you get there, which eventually you will, inshallah,
Amen.
don't you initiating an executive bill that will make politics a part-time job would be in order, so that we can save 1/4 of the budget payment later. Productive.
It is by personal example. I made a policy promise that first, I will not earn a salary as president. And even any public office I hold, from this age, I'm okay. I don't need to pro bono. And I've done many things for the government. I'm happy you're from Central Bank. I've done a very important case for Central Bank of Nigeria where they evaluated my fees to maybe $20-something million. I said, no, I don't. Maybe you can give me national honor if you can have it. I can work for the public. So, and my party had an engagement with me. You mean you won't pay anybody? I said, look, my first priority goes to those people who want to serve as ministers and who are okay, they don't want to earn salary. So that way, my national secretary, at the age of 39, he was the road safety corps marshal at that time. I don't think he needs government money anymore. So we have many people around who can work like that. So if you leave a personal example, others will also volunteer. But what kills government is not the salary, it is the stealing. So let us understand that.
Thank you. I have a very simple question. Since we have very impressive presentation, since we have very good ideas from the candidate, is it possible from his own campaign for the like minds in Nigerian political system to come together to be able to rescue the country? Thank you, ma'am.
Out of 18 of us running, only one will be president. So there's nothing to be proud about in that. You have to be humble. It's not an ego issue. However, coming together to form a cooperative and a strong coalition to rescue the people is different from forming a conspiracy to grab power. Well, all of us just come together, we don't agree on anything. Okay, you make me minister, you make me this, and then you come. That's what happened in 2015. And you can see what Nigerians call katakata that has followed now. So we won't do that.
What plans do you have, if elected, for the students of our advanced institution? Thank you.
So the first thing to do is to make sure no more strikes. Second is to make sure that we catch up with the past. And for anything that arose from the consequence of the strike, for example, people missing their NYSC service and all of that, every institution will take cognizance of that period. And I also would let the youth know that it is not only through NYSC that you can serve the country. I think all youths under our government, every youth, will be of service to this country, both civil, military, administrative, in every way. They will serve the country.
The question I have is, what would you, I've asked this question before, what are you willing to lay your life down for to ensure that Nigeria succeeds? Everyone is scared to do what is right. Everyone is scared to ensure that things are done properly. What fears do you have, and what fears do you not have? Thank you. Thank you.
Nigeria is a country that is short of heroes. And to be a hero doesn't mean you have to jump from Aso Rock to the ground and immolate yourself. It means that everything that one does, the country must come first. And that when it comes to taking decisions, the country comes as number one. No friend, no foe. And that you don't think about your survival. In any case, the life expectancy of Nigerians is quite low at this point. I'm older than my father. My father died at 36. So I think at this point, the God has preserved one's life to this point means that he's preserving it for a purpose. And if one wants to rescue Nigeria from the quagmire we have put ourselves in, that leader has to be fearless. Not that he has to be reckless, but he has to be fearless. He should not worry about what happens to me. Am I going to win the election or not? That's why as we are contesting, we don't say things that make people happy. We say things that are true and we can do. And when we are taking decisions, we don't care who is going to complain. We care whether this thing is in the interest of the public. And these are the things that we all have consensus. Nigerians know what is right. Even those who are there now, they know what is right. The courage to do what is right and pay the price for that courage is what is missing. And that's what we must provide.